Thank you for joining today's webinar. We're going to be going over Sage 300 versus Sage Intacct, and we're really excited to show you what it's all about. For those who don't know me, my name is Frank Cuccio. I'm an ERP account executive here at BrainSell, and with me today is my colleague, Kellyanne Bonds.
Hey everyone, I'm Kellyanne Bonds, the Sage 300 and Sage Intacct implementation engineer here at BrainSell.
All right, some quick housekeeping. This presentation is going to be about 25 minutes long, and we'll have some Q&A at the end. So drop any questions you have in the question box below, and we'll try to get to all of them, but if not, we'll follow up afterwards. And this webinar is going to be recorded, and the recording will be sent out tomorrow to all registrants. So please feel free to pass the recording along to anyone who couldn't join us. All right, let's jump in. So to start off, we wanted to cover a customer case study. And it's one of BrainSell's very own customers who flipped from Sage 300 to Sage Intacct. So we'll go through kind of what their challenges that they were facing were and how Intacct helped them solve it. So this customer was in the higher education industry. Like I said, they were on Sage 300. They were using a couple other tools as well, Excel, Expensify, and their positive pay process was manual. And the final solution when they migrated was Sage Intacct with Expensify and Bill.com. So their challenges, and they're probably familiar to some of the folks here, were disconnected systems with disparate and manual workflows. So, Sage 300, Microsoft Excel, having to import, export data. Their financial reporting insights didn't really go beyond basic. They were difficult to create and sometimes not even possible to produce. And lastly, Sage 300, it was on an on-premise server. Nobody could work from home. The work from anywhere model just not really feasible. So the solution that we proposed and ultimately went with was to move over to Sage Intacct and Expensify, Bill.com. They saw a 25% reduction in time spent cutting checks. They slashed days from the report preparation process, and they increased automation and flexibility, and they boosted their entire team's efficiency, and it's scalable. So a lot of time saved, a lot of automation, and a lot of money ultimately saved as well. All right, this one's a little bit busy, but we will also be sending out the slide deck when this is when we send the recording. So feel free to read it tomorrow when you get it. So some of the pain points that we see for customers who are on Sage 300, as I mentioned, the on-premise solution or being cloud hosted. You need to log in through Parallels with the remote desktop connection. It adds time, and it's not as accessible as a true cloud solution where you just log in to a URL like you're logging into Facebook. Reporting is labor intensive, and it has to be reformatted in Excel. And when you do that, then you've got multiple reports floating around. You never know which one is the one that you should be working on. Formulas could get messed up. It's just time consuming and adds a lot of opportunity for error. This Sage 300 is pretty limited as far as verticals go, and industry specific activities are tracked manually. The marketplace is really limited as well. You're not going to see too many add-ons. And the chart of accounts, it's the traditional style where if you're trying to track things, you're adding digits upon digits upon digits. And it just ultimately will grow beyond your control, and your reporting just is never going to be as succinct and easy as something, and you'll see when we show you Sage Intacct. Multi-entity management is another thing. You got to have an add-on for it, and the reporting needs another add-on in order to consolidate or report against multiple entities. And it's just a little bit clunky, and collaboration's pretty tough. Sage Intacct.
To the Sage Intacct piece. So Intacct actually stands for Internet Accounting. So it was born in the cloud and native to the cloud. It wasn't ever an on-premise system that just got upgraded. It has always been there. So it also, what that means is that the releases quarterly are applied automatically. So unlike your on-premise systems where you have downtime, you have consulting services fees, and then you are also learning about the new features, this requires no downtime or consulting services. It automatically applies to your environment. And really new features are only obtained if you go ahead and learn about them and then you want to enable them, and we work on an optimization program for your instance. Now, they do have great dashboards and reports that deliver instant visibility and eliminate the need for Excel-based reports, which might scare some of you because we all love our Excel models, but one day, you will have to part with them. And there are deep vertical focuses and automation of key industry processes, like eliminating the need for manual tracking, whether that's with the addition of the contracts module or projects module, grant tracking, any of that, is really great for those industries of, nonprofit as well as for-profit industries. But then we've got the Sage Intacct Marketplace, which I did add a link here. So once you guys get this deck, you will be able to hover over this link and follow that to the marketplace. That shows you just all the current API connections that it's got with e-commerce or point of sale solutions or manufacturing systems, if you want more granularity on that. So again, like we said, there is deep vertical focus, but then you can also get more granular as you get into the marketplace add-ons. And it does use a modern dimensional account structure, which streamlines both chart of accounts and reporting. So now you don't need that, 9 number for, a 9-string account number anymore. You really just need a 4 to 6 digit account number for your main accounts, and then every dimension that usually would be a segment, whether that's location or department or division, we see class, customer, vendor, project, what have you. Those dimensions are now all separated out of the account number, and they make it easy to, what Sage Intacct calls, is slice and dice your data in any way. So I'll show you guys a little bit of that in the reporting today. And then you've got the multiple entities that share the same chart of accounts, customers, and vendors, all on that top level. So we'll really go into it when I can show you guys the dashboard I'm looking at on my other screen, and we'll dive into Sage Intacct with the consolidations and eliminations that can be automatic, providing immediate visibility to consolidated results. So there's no, let me adjust this really quick, sorry, it's too much light. But we've got also, lastly, the modern intuitive system that it is, with the approval workflows and another great link for Collaborate. This is a Salesforce chatter tool that has been embedded in Sage Intacct. And we've got AI tools such as GL outlier detection, bank reconciliation, auto match, and custom smart rules and smart events if those don't match your issues. So I'm going to flip over to the Sage Intacct environment. Frank, do you have any questions?
Yeah, you just mentioned the Collaborate tool. Just could you explain what that is?
Definitely. So Collaborate, and we'll see it in the environment here in a second, is a native Salesforce chatter tool that has been promoted to Sage Intacct to allow you to post or comment any link, email, attachment, or just plain text to a transaction or to any record. So it's really helpful for, collaboration, obviously, but as we focus on this new remote work environment.
Yeah, so I like to say it's sort of like the Facebook wall for a transaction, that you can leave notes so that if somebody comes and looks, they know exactly what you were thinking or what you were trying to accomplish.
Exactly. And just to confirm, Frank, you can still see my screen. It's now on the Sage Intacct dashboard.
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So welcome everyone to Sage Intacct. So here we've got the top level, which is really just a level of visibility. And then you can work within each entity, or you can just work at the top level and have that ability to have the inter-entity transactions, all from just the top level, not having to jump in and out of companies and, not having to log in and out as well. So here we've got a balance sheet condensed, and anything green is drill down capable. So I'm going to go ahead and drill down on this balance sheet, and we'll get the general ledger report. So what I wanted to show you on this is that you can dive into each individual transaction. Now you see these dimensions I was talking about. So instead of your lengthy account number, our account number here is just our checking account, which is 110. And then we've got the department and location and class being used often, but we'll see some transactions don't use all the dimensions. And so as long as your settings are configured to either, require the use of dimensions or just keep it open-ended, and, if that dimension does exist, then include it. For example, here you've got project, where in these other transactions you don't have project for this account. So maybe this was a one-off scenario. So I could drill down, and then I get to the actual line, and this was a check. So I could drill down more and see the check and which bank account it's from. With that being said, I did want to dive into a little bit of actual versus budget, because you do have the capability to import in your budget if it's just from Excel, but there is a standalone Sage Intacct budget and planning tool, and that has a fluid integration with Sage Intacct, where it's just seamless, and then it updates your budget as you're going out throughout the year, and then you can see this sparkline trend, which is really great, and have this conditional formatting as well, and a little warning message: exceeds budget. But with that being said, I did want to take a look at the chart of accounts and just show you guys what your chart of accounts looks like now, as we were just talking about it, and show you on the screen that here is the requiring dimensions. So you get to do this on each account number. So let's say for your accounts receivable, you always want customer. Well, that's almost pretty obvious, but sometimes folks might accidentally post to accounts receivable and might not have customers. So, you want to make sure that everything is enforced so that you can really have that data integrity, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be, watching every bookkeeper enter each transaction. Yes, you can have an approval workflow with a GL outlier detection tool, which I'll show you here in a second. But you want to be able to enforce great data integrity at time of entry instead of, you know, having to do all the work yourself, really. And that's what these tools help you do. So if we take a look at, let me see.
Kellyanne, can I ask a quick question about
Yeah.
the chart of accounts and kind of the transactions themselves? So if you require a bunch of dimensions, does that mean every transaction that we post, we've got to go in there and make those selections? Does that add a lot of time to the process?
Great question. So what we can do is we can create dimension relationships so they can autofill. So if I have a location that's always with a department, that's always with a project, we can create that link for you. And then on your AP bills or your AR invoices, you also have the opportunity to repeat the exact coding as it was for the last time you used that vendor or customer. And so I'll show you that as well.
Cool. So it's a different process, but it shouldn't take really any longer.
Right, exactly. Because at the end of the day, you're sitting there with the long, lengthy account number, and you're maybe debating between 3 strings, and you don't know those 2 digits in the middle what they stand for. So,
Awesome.
exactly. Yeah, great question. Yeah. And here is that GL outlier detection tool. So this is using AI. And if we take a look at what has been submitted here, this is stating that it is unusual historical matches were found, and it's got 2 outlier versions. So it is either the amount is unusual or the coding is unusual, which is kind of what we were just talking about with that account number, location, and department setup, that if that's not a usual combination, the outlier detection will throw it with an exclamation point just to make it, you know, something of your attention. And if I say, well, this amount is okay for this one time, I can approve or I can decline with comment. So great, great approval workflows there. And it does have 6 levels, just like your AP workflow. And if we go into, we've obviously got, you know, the recurring, adjusting journal entries, but I did want to show you in journal entries what is a little different in Sage 300 versus Sage Intacct is Sage 300 can only do allocations at periodic processing, so usually at month end. So if I take a look and type in, you know, a random account number here, and let's say I have a $3,000 debit, and then I want to separate this out amongst my locations, but I don't want to have to do the math. And let's say this is fixed percentages. So I'm going to select one of my allocation IDs I've already created, and then it'll gray out the dimension that it has used or it has allocated to. And then it shows me with the percentage calculations that I inputted in the beginning when I configured the system to have 50% here, 40% here, and 10% here. So really neat that you don't have to do that math anymore, and you can just do a journal entry without a calculator. You know, and you know, the math is never this easy. So it's definitely very helpful when you're on those AP bills and you're trying to allocate, again, you know, amongst entities. These are 100, 200, and 300 entities. So we can also talk about that, how these entities share the same dimension as location. So you'll see here in, let's go to company, setup, and locations. We've got some other locations that are in that drop down, but that are actually tied to the parent of the entity. So anytime you use this store or this location, or sometimes people call it a property if you're a property management company, and if you use this store, you immediately are using the inter-entity account mapping of this USA 100. So what I mean by that is the inter-entity account mapping is right here. And so this is the advanced. The basic looks pretty similar, but this is your entity A, inter-entity receivable, and your entity A, inter-entity payable, and so forth for entity B. And then you've got all your different combinations of how that could go. And if we take a look at a intercompany transaction, we'll see here was our entry. And so we put it to 100 and 200 as a professional fees expense, but then we moved it to 300 for intercompany professional fees. And as we see down here, we now have a due to entity 300, and this has all been auto-generated. So just from that account mapping, we were able to generate automatically these inter-entity transactions.
We got a question in the chat. They wanted to know if you're working in more than one entity, let's say your employee only works for entity 1, are they going to be able to go into entity 2?
Great question. No. So they will if you grant them those permissions, but everything is, entity or department restricted. So if we go to company and we go to just the roles, I'll show you how these permissions kind of look.
And just before you dive in, the follow-up was switching between entities if they do have permission. The way they do it is logging in and out of the file. So I just wanted to see what that looks like.
Right, and yep, that is right here. Let me show you the roles information. So you create a role for them, and that's the modules, and then user entities, and you can enable access to top level. So if they have more than one entity, you still can give them access to top level, but it won't give them access to every entity. So top level is just really that window into each entity. It's not an entity itself. And so a lot of folks, are thinking, oh, well, we don't consolidate to one single entity. We still have all our individual entities. Well, that may be true, but you definitely want consolidated reporting. And so this allows you to, get that inter-entity transactional level while still being on the top level, or like this, I just dove into that entity and now I'm in entity 100.
Cool.
Good question, yeah. And let's see, so I'll go back here and we can talk about the cash management. I want to show you guys the banking cloud and what that looks like. This is a feature that's included with your core financials. So you get up to 200 bank feeds. And as you can see, they're, pretty big banks, but then you've also got, your smaller banks. I was going to type in PNC, but then I just saw that logo.
We had a person who, their bank was called Service, SEVIS. It was in like Charleston. Never heard of it myself, but there it is.
Exactly. And here you can let them know your bank is not listed, and they'll work on getting you a feed for that. But if you don't have a bank feed, then you can just do the import, which is very easy as well. And so we'll take a look at the bank rec right now. And I will select this bank rec. I do have an attachment, so I'm doing the import version. As you can see, we've got some unmatched transactions out here, but we also have matched, and so I'm going to apply filters here. And just want to dive into one of these or two of these where the auto match rule actually applied itself here. So this is a rule I created or configured for this system, just 001, simple amount, document number, and date match. So that is a 1-to-1 ratio. So this amount is 5,100. You'll see the bank amount was 5,100. That is that auto match because the simple amount, document number, and date did match. So if we see the check number is the same and document date are the same. And then we've got, as well as the 1-to-1, we've got many-to-one or one-to-many. If you click on it, you get to the actual transaction itself, but if you click match, you get to see the auto match. And so here again, it is auto matched many-to-one. So this is many transactions in your bank to, or the opposite, sorry, many transactions to your Sage Intacct to your bank account. And Frank, I know you've got a
Yeah,
good
no, I
story
like
on
that one. You know, when I was helping my father-in-law with his bookkeeping, and we were using QuickBooks, but I think it probably applies to other systems. But we do a deposit with a check that maybe was from multiple invoices, or maybe it was multiple checks deposited at once, so it came in as like one number. And then I got to figure out, you know, how did it get, like, where did this come from? I don't see this number anywhere. And I'm out there with a calculator, Excel, trying to piece it back together. If I
exactly
had
that most
this, it would find it itself.
yeah, it is. It is tricky, especially, you know, again, when the math is not this easy, when it's not 50 bucks, 50 bucks. Yeah, definitely, you know, can get frustrating. And so that's the AI feature of the cash management of BankRec. And then we showed you the general ledger outlier detection. Just wanted to show you that screen one more time on where that exclamation point is versus the other approvals.
So
And
that's just looking at your transactions and saying, this one of these is not like the other. Like, you have
exactly, yeah,
$50 transactions every week, and all of a sudden it's 500 or 5,000.
exactly. And the other error that you would get, you know, this one it says is amount, but the other error you would get is a coding error, which is just meaning the account, the dimensions, this isn't a usual combination for you. Are you sure about this? So it really, and then also though, if you go ahead and approve it, you know, besides that, you know, and you say, yep, that is a good combination, we want to use that going forward, it will not check that or alarm you anytime it sees that combination going forward. So it will learn from what you approve and what you decline. So make sure that, you know, when you are approving and declining, you do want to actually teach the system, hey, that's not, you know, it's really teaching the system. I think it's kind of cool, but
I wish I had that when I was doing accounting in undergrad.
right, amen, me too. Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right, and I don't want to take up too much time. Frank, how
I,
are you looking on time?
I think we're doing all right. I think, you know, from some of the comments I'm seeing in the box, I think they just want to understand reporting a little bit more. You know, how do you export to Excel, or even just, you know, they're hearing that the reporting is better in Sage
Yeah,
Intacct. And
definitely.
I'm thinking to myself, like, if you were going to run a report traditionally, you know, how many steps does it take if you wanted to do, let's say, revenue by department? You know, your CEO comes and says, I need to know what the revenue by department is. How do you even get that? You're pulling the revenue for your period, exporting it into Excel, then you got to tag each one manually for like where it came from,
Yeah,
and
a
then use
lot of
pivot
folks.
tables.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say a lot of folks use pivot tables to, again, parse out those little segmented accounts. So if we take a look here, there's actually just an out of the box P&L by department, because once you have your dimensions in here, you have your chart of accounts in here, and you assign it to just a quick start category, it automatically knows how to treat that account in financials. So your out of the box financials are already 10 times better and 10 times easier than what you would get out of Sage 300. So if we see
that was
here,
it.
go ahead.
That's it. That's all you had to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And so you'll see we've got a category of revenue subscriptions, but then we've got the actual account numbers here. And again, anything green is drill down capable. So really neat to be able to go all the way to the general ledger report, and then from that identify exactly which transaction's not looking good, and go to the invoice and take a look. So this actually leads me to a perfect spot, which is where I wanted to go next, the collaborate feature. So the collaborate feature, like we were saying, is basically a Facebook wall for a certain transaction. And on this transaction, I can tag another employee by their contact username. And then I can say, okay, well, I guess I just posted that instead of hit enter. Okay. Anyways, this Nikki Tesla is what I just commented. I can just put any comment here, but I can also attach a file or a link, like I was saying. And if someone goes ahead and tags me, I get an email notification. And then I also have the opportunity to follow this record. So I can follow this record all the way from, it being an invoice to the, shipper of goods and all of that. So I can track it through and have a full record of what anyone else is thinking on this exact transaction. And then, of course, I do have the capability to add an attachment to any transaction or record. So a lot of folks like to add, at minimum, your maybe AP bills, a uploaded PDF, or you see someone attaching a full Excel document. And you can still do that if, the Excel document backs whatever allocation maybe you did. But really neat to see that you can create just an ID for the attachment, put it in a folder, create a folder hierarchy, and then you can have almost up to 10, I believe. Check me on that, Frank. Up to 10 files in a single attachment.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, and I just attached, a random Excel there, but if you do attach a AP bill or something like that, it will go to, let's see, this is, because this is an AR invoice, it's not letting me. So let me go to an AP bill real quick.
And just watching the clock, we've got to wrap this up. But yeah, show the AP and then we'll close it on out. Thanks for everyone for coming,
Let's see. Okay, I'll just get to it from the.
I'll just answer a couple of the questions while you get there. So I'm seeing, how do you export reports? Easy, there's just a button, takes 2 seconds. If they wanted to migrate from 300 to Intacct, how long would that take? I don't know, what are we saying? 90 days?
Yeah, it really depends on, your speed and how quick you can rally your team. So I would say if your data is already clean, like you've got email addresses, you've got customer, you've got all those in the right fields in the right places, then it shouldn't take longer than, 60, 90 days. But, some folks can do it quicker. Some folks, it takes much longer. So.
Yeah. And then does Sage Intacct have similar add-ons? Yes, and hundreds more. The
Yeah,
marketplace for
exactly.
Intacct's huge.
Yeah, and I added that link on these slides, so you guys should be getting that as well. And here's what I wanted to show, sorry, real quick, that it does a split screen for AP bills and allows you to just click view attachment, and then you can, make sure that it extracted the information correctly as well, because they do have a bill upload feature that you could also take advantage of if that was a feature that you guys are looking for.
Cool. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, Kellyanne, for the demo. I think we showed a lot of really nice improvements over what some of the folks probably are used to in 300. But yeah, thanks to everyone for joining and for your questions. If your question didn't get answered, I know there was one or two in there that we didn't get to. We'll follow up with you. We have a log of the questions that got submitted. And if you're interested in learning more about Intacct, it's setting up maybe an evaluation to talk to Kellyanne and myself, please reach out to me. We'll get something scheduled. Typically, quick call to do some discovery, and then using the information we learn there, we'll do a tailored demo. So yeah, really exciting. Check out the recording tomorrow in your inbox and take a look at those slides and the links in them. Thanks again. Have a great day.